Good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Weishuhn. If you enjoy real-world hunting and fishing talk, you're really going to enjoy listening to my good friend, Luke Clayton, and his guest for the next hour.
This is David Fox, and welcome to Outdoors with Luke Clayton and Friends. Luke has been a recognized outdoors writer for the past 3 decades and writes for a host of outdoor publications. Luke pens a weekly newspaper outdoors column that appears in over 40 Texas newspapers. Luke is on the pro staff of Pyramid Air, your one-stop shop for everything air gun related. Smoking techs, electric smokers, feel free to contact Luke through his website, catfishradio.org. Now let's join Luke and his guests for this week's show.
Thank you, fellas, for that nice introduction, and it is Campfire Talk time with Mr. Larry Weishuhn, who's back home after a jaunt out in far west Texas, hunt out there for Carbon Mountain whitetails, I think they are, the little whitetails out there, and some bigger bucks. But, Larry, Happy New Year to you, buddy.
Well, Happy New Year to you, and I know everybody had a fantastic Christmas. I have to tell everybody that we really appreciate DSC, Conservation Education, Hunter Advocacy. Remind everybody, too, that the DSC Convention is coming up in Atlanta the 6th, 7th, and 8th of February, and hope to see a lot of folks out there. Of course, need to mention Hornady. You and I have really been putting Hornady's accurate, deadly, and dependable ammunition to work here as of late. Yep. It's been out of this world good. And of course, Stealth Vision, my gosh, those guys produce the best optics are to be found anywhere. And been using a lot of stealth. I've almost said Stealth Vision twice, but I've been using a whole bunch of Vineyard Max. I'll tell you what, it worked out like a charm in some of ththese places where kind of like out in West Texas some time ago that, we weren't too sure it was going to work out there. I can assure you it did. And then I had an opportunity to hunt javelina and deer a little bit in West Texas. Tell about that a whole lot more some other time with a Taurus handgun with the Raging Hunter. So tell you what, it's been a great year in so many different ways. And, we're right on the cusp here of the new year. And as you said, wishing everybody Happy New Year. But my gosh, Luke, there's a bunch of hunting still to be had. And like I said, I want to come back and we'll devote maybe an entire segment or two about some of the hunts that I've been on here as of late. But, there's still a bunch of stuff coming up here very shortly. And we'll be back up on the Choctaw Hunting Lodge here before too very long as well, too.
That's right. There's an oryx, a non-trophy oryx up there, a broken horn one, and there's several of them that don't have the perfect horns there, for trophy status. But when I was talking with Dusty Vickery the other day, he said, "Just come." I said, "Let's wait till after the first of the year, through at Christmas and the holidays. Everybody's so busy." And he said, "That's fine. They'll be here." So look forward to doing that next month here, maybe in the next couple of weeks,
Absolutely.
You mentioned Vineyard Max. I was up in Grayson County hunting with Bill Carey. And I'm going to tell you something. We had an absolute ball. I baited a spot with Vineyard Max where I wanted the deer to – it's bow hunting only in Grayson County. And I had more fun – we're always talking about introducing someone to hunting. Well, you don't have to introduce Bill Carey. He's hunted for years, but he's got so busy with his guide business up there, Striper Express at Lake Texoma, that, the past many years he hasn't hunted, but by golly, he's hunted now. We put one of these see-through blinds up back a couple of months ago, on his place back there.
Absolutely.
And we got Bill in that thing. He was, I tell you what, the hunting blood was pumping. But I was mentioning Vineyard Max. I put out some bow hunting, so, you got to get your deer in close. And that we did with that Vineyard Max. They stopped one out there 23 yards. It's kind of all of our deer hunter buddies will understand when you're bow hunting, the last thing you want that deer to do, if there's a feed pin around your feeder, you don't want him in there. You're going to have to shoot him before he gets in there. And we looked at Bill punch me. His eyes were big as saucers. He punched me. There was an area out in front across a little quarter-acre food plot, not a very big one, but back in some pretty rugged country there behind on his place. And looked out, and there's a big old deer. At first, I thought it was a big doe, but as closer it got, it was a spike. And I thought, well, the little spikes were maybe 5 inches long, 6 maybe at the most. And I thought, I looked over at Bill. Boy, he was he was focused and locked in on that deer. And there's some big bucks in Grayson County. There's some
yes, sir.
Giant bucks, and I'd already made my mind up. The first grown buck, regardless of what kind of had that spike been older, I would have shot him. But Larry, that had to have been a 2-year-old. He was a big-bodied deer, bigger than any doe that you'll see. First, I thought it must be a 1.5-year-old deer, but the more I looked at him, when he got 23 yards, you could see his whiskers even. He's that close. And no, that deer was 2. But I didn't shoot him, but he put on a show. He walked out there and started nibbling on that Vineyard Max, 23 yards. And I'm telling you what, the deer was broadside. You couldn't put up a decoy, a target out there that was more perfect. I stayed off that bow, but I was hoping he was just a little bit older. But I don't know. I don't really understand a deer being that big of body. He looked with those little 6-inch antlers, looked like spikes, looked like maybe he should have been a 1.5 years. But I'm convinced myself that was a 2-year-old buck.
Well, as you well know, those deer are pretty darn big to begin with. But it's very likely that deer that you saw was out of a 6-month-old doe fawn. And sometimes those bucks, if they're bucks and they're born of that age of, or when she gets bred, they just don't, it takes them a while to catch up because their bodies seem to grow, but sometimes it takes their antlers a little bit longer. So it'll be interesting. I wish there were a way you could have marked that deer or it had some kind of marking on him to see what he's going to look like next year. But I just got a feeling that very likely that deer in another year or 2 is going to be a pretty darn good kind of deer.
That's what I was thinking. I knew that it was a very young deer, and I thought, and I was actually in my mind was as bad as I wanted to. We were filming for one of our shows, A Sportsman's Life, and as much as I wanted to wrap that little deal up and put some venison in the freezer, I held off because I thought, well, this deer with a body like that, he's bound to bloom out here when he's a little bit long. The only thing that hung me up was the fact of the size of the little spikes, but the body really told me a lot. But you're right, Larry. There's a lot of hunting coming up. Well, the end that we're approaching, the end of the general season. But gosh, there's so many managed land ranches with permits here in Texas. A lot of. And I will make this statement. I was over at the Cotton Ranch, let me think, about a week ago, and those deer had been hammering acorns. Our acorns out here where we live and hunt, it had started falling in September like they always do, but there was like a second crop of acorns hitting the ground. I don't understand that, but it did. And those deer, they just almost abandoned the corn feeders. But they were hitting the green fields a little bit, the oat patches. But now they're coming back. They're hitting those winter little tender niblets on those oat patches. The crops out there.
They are starting to show back up again. It was interesting. We had our DSC Foundation Christmas party not too very long ago there at the Rock Island gun sales place, and immediately when I walked in, I had about. I think there were 6 to 8 people individually that came by and says, okay, you're supposed to be the whitetail expert. Where are the deer? And very few people were seeing deer. And same thing, I spent like 4 days on the Cotton Ranch, and normally we'd see, at least one mature deer a day and sometimes several during that same time period in the past. And gosh, I was there 4 days, saw very few deer, finally was able to shoot a doe, but never saw a mature deer the whole time that I was there. So, but since Christmas has occurred, I've talked to them, and they as you just mentioned, they're starting to show up a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've got to make a trip over there and have a look. I still got a few more does I have to shoot over there that want to shoot, and so still looking for one or two of those management bucks as well too.
That's right. I was talking with Edgar last night, Edgar Cotton, that owns the place, folks. Larry and I have a tendency to think you know who we're talking about. They're such good friends. But Edgar Cotton and his son David, they're great friends of ours in Kaufman County. But I was talking to Edgar last night. He said we need to take some more does and get a buck. So I've got a hunt planned day after tomorrow in the afternoon. We're going to get settled in about 3:00. And I'm going to see what comes out. But
all right,
there hadn't been any deer taken to speak of. A couple of does, I think, is about it. So to meet the management plan, I mean, I'm not just hopeful. I really do think this late season is going to be a lot better as far as seeing deer come out of those woods, because the acorns are just about gone. I was looking around out there the last time I was there, and Edgar told me, he said there's a couple of oak trees that were just loaded with freshly fallen acorns, and he said deer are sticking away from them now because they've about cleaned them up. So hoping for the best, Larry. That's
absolutely. Well, regardless, it's going to be fun. I know we've got some stuff coming up on the Choctaw and there, and of course the late muzzleloader season is going to start here for too very long as well too, for those people who aren't on the MLD program in Texas.
Exactly, Larry. Well, I want to wish you and all of our friends listening a happy and prosperous and healthy New Year. It's hard to believe, but it's just around the corner. Here a few more days, we'll be celebrating the New Year, Larry. So I know you've got a busy rest of this winter, a lot of hunts coming up and all that. So Happy New Year.
Well, Happy New Year to you and everybody else out there, and we'll join everybody right back here. Or I will. You continue on with the show, but I'll be back here next week, and maybe we'll tell a story then.
Okay, I want to hear more about those Carmen Mountain whitetails. So,
yes, sir.
We'll reconvene this time next week. Thank you, Larry. Well, friends, Mr. Larry Weishuhn is going to tell you about the finest hunting optics that we have ever found.
Luke, these are called Stealth Vision. They come from Crockett, Texas. Dr. John McCall developed them. They're 34 millimeter tubes as opposed to the narrower tubes, so more light transmission. They have a little green light that comes on. That scope is level because that's when you want to pull the trigger. They have an optional lighted reticle as well too, and a whole lot of other products. And folks can learn more about them by going to stealthvision.com.
Folks, I want to introduce you to Vineyard Max. Now, this is an awesome deer attractant, a food attractant that's made with hammer-milled grape skin, dried hammer-milled grape skins. It has a mixture of rice bran and also corn chops. Very effective. Deer can smell the scent of grapes from a long way, and it brings them in. I've used it in West Texas out with Larry Weishuhn, and we were out there where deer are not even exposed to grapes, and they came right in. Also, Vineyard Max has a very good line of game and fish feeders. Check them out online, vineyardmax.net. Folks, this segment is made possible by Smoking Tex electric smokers that I've been using a long, long time. I want to tell you about a one-stop shop for everything related to game feeders and fish feeders, Ultramatic feeders. I've been using components and feeders from Ultramatic feeders for 20-something years, I guess. They have the remote, which you can remotely activate your feeder with, the timer, which is the most simple timer that I've ever found on a game feeder, and then the eliminator. Check these out. They are worked on centrifugal force, and they seal off the corn supply so coons and squirrels can't get to the corn. Check them out. Ultramatic feeders, you could go online to ultramaticfeeders.com. Well, folks, I do wish you a happy new year. Mr. Whitetail was our first guest, and he had some interesting deer hunting talk. Let's talk some more rifles this time. Now, Mr. Dustin Warnke, who is the producer of Catfish Radio, he's the one that balances our sounds and makes old Luke sound semi-good at times, but Dustin is, he likes to buy old military rifles and refurbish them, or he knows a lot about this. He's been doing it. He and his son Jackson been doing this for years. Let's see if we can learn something about that topic. Dustin, thank you, buddy, for being with us.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me on again, Luke. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, sir. I always pick your brain. You know a lot of things about a lot of different topics. So, so when I was a kid, I won't say a kid, when I was first married back in, say when old Luke was 20 years old, 21, I had zero. Every dollar I had was buying Infamil for a baby, our little daughter or something like that. But I did. I ordered some. I had a 303 British, and then I ordered another gun from an old boy. You could buy them back then. These were from individuals. I'd find that they'd have there's a deal called green sheet that you could get all kind of buys out of back then. I don't even know if it's still around. But you'd say 303 British, $28 or whatever. Well, I bought a few of those, and I actually, iron sights, I didn't know anything about refurbishing one, but I actually hunted with a 303 British with iron sights back in the day for a year or two. But how difficult are those? Are those old rifles still available? I mean, there's all kind of different ones that's been around forever. Can you still find them?
Absolutely, and one of the best places that I search for, at least in Texas here where you and I live, is called Texas Gun Trader. You can just Google that and find their website and everything, and it's kind of like a peer-to-peer, individuals, some dealers are on there, but it's mainly individual private party sale. And so, recently I ended up with a 7mm Mauser that's been Sporterized. So that's the thing I want our listeners here to hear. Sporterization was very common in the 50s and 60s post-World War II. You could buy these rifles cheaper than going to the hardware store back then, or anywhere compared to what we have now. That it was cheaper to buy an old gun, and there's a history in that, for me, as far as the Sporterization and all that other stuff. For me, it was all about where was this rifle? Where did this serve? And I got in about 20 years ago to collecting and shooting and hunting with. I was one of the first people on YouTube 12 years ago, having recording my my videos, and some of them are on Carbon TV now, of me hunting with these Mosin Nagants. I would get kind of a no drill, no tap scopes, and they make several of them these days. These are the 9130s. 7.62 by 51. 7.62 by 54 rimmed is the only rimmed cartridge that has been there since 1891 and still in use today. And it falls ballistically like a 303 British or an 8mm Mauser, around between a 308 and a 30-06, right? Between those ballistically, right? A lot of people don't talk about these calibers because we have all these new guns these days.
Yeah.
And it's cheaper these days to buy one. But I see the history, and one of the best values, Luke, is to go on one of these sites. It could be Texas Hunting Forum, or wherever you have classifieds where people are kind of listing what they have to sell. It's Sporterized military arms, so Mausers, Mosins, Enfields, those kind of things. If you can find them already drilled and tapped, it's a great bargain. And the thing is, you can source the ammo from some online suppliers, and basically just get it mailed to your house as far as the ammo, and then you could do whatever you want to with that gun. It's ready to hunt in a lot of cases. The one that I just purchased is.
Folks, Dustin actually emailed me or sent me a picture of this rifle that he got. That is that's a beautiful rifle. The wood, is, I'm not looking, haven't had the chance to really look at it, but I have a feeling that might be a shooter. And talk about the scope that came with it too,
Oh yeah, so some of your listeners, your older listeners, may appreciate the fact that it's got a Weaver K4 scope. So that's a fixed 4-power scope. Back in its day, it was the golden standard for optics. When people would use optics, a lot of guys still used iron sights with the old 30-30. But here you have like a 7mm Mauser is as good as a 270 ballistically, which I learned on one of Ron Spomer's videos on YouTube. About the same up to about 200 yards as a 270. Everybody talks about 270 being a great deer caliber. You never hear about the 7mm Mauser, which is very similar ballistically in comparison. And the fact that this gun has fought in, likely a war somewhere, in some kind of conflict, a Yugoslavian M48 Mauser that I have that's sporterized, same deal. And back in the day, you could buy these guns unsporterized, in their military configuration for like $100 even, back 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Now they're more expensive in their original military form, but the best value is to find one of these that, back in the day when it was cheaper to sporterize one versus going to the hardware store and buying one. That's a piece of history, and it's also a piece of time that we've lost. It's like, I believe that we've kind of lost with all these new guns and the fact that you can go get the newest, hottest caliber, the newest rifle cheaper than you could do it. But there's a bit of history and there's a bit of the process of how that gun was made and then how that gun was turned into a hunting rifle. And that has always fascinated me, Luke.
Yes, sir. And then the thing is, you check the rifling on that, and you say the lance and grooves are crisp as can be after all these years. To me, I just like, years ago I got into muzzle loading, and that's all I did for maybe 8 years probably. That's a big game. That's all I hunted with, muzzle loaders. Then I got it, believe it or not, then after that I got into bows, and I hunted with bows for about 15 years. I still hunt with muzzle loaders. I still hunt with bows. I still hunt a lot with big bore air rifles. So it's something new. I don't know, there's something in my brain that's something unique and different. It triggers it. And the thought of using an old military rifle, which back in the day, my limited experience with these things, I didn't know where to find the bullet rounds for them. I just knew it was a cheap gun. It looked cool, and I bought it, But taking it to the next level, I think what could be more cool than to take a gun, a rifle that you don't know where that thing's been, what it's done, what war you have an idea where it might have been, but take that rifle that's been sporterized with a scope that's iconic that people used 50, 60 years ago and go hunt a deer or a hog.
Yeah.
To me, Dustin, that's very appealing. And I bet it is to a lot of our friends listening too,
Absolutely. And, one of the things that a lot of people, the thing that this guy that I bought this from, right, it was like a $200 deal. And I got it for even less than that. I negotiated with him. But I took, one of the things I always do, I was teaching my son Jackson, he's 16 now, how to evaluate a used gun while we were there right in front of him. I got a bore snake with me that fit the 7mm barrel and basically just ran that bore snake through there, got a bore light, stuck it up in there, and made sure it wasn't what we used to call a tomato plant stake, like a garden stake. There are a lot of guns that just aren't worth anything. But the thing is, he had people even reaching out to him saying, "You'll never sell that gun." Well, I'm a protagonist. I like things, my personality is the protagonist, which we like things that a lot of people don't like. And there's something that fascinates me about the history of an old sporterized rifle. And of course, you can find some on like Gunbroker that are really expensive that have been sporterized in 30-06 and a lot of common calibers we know of today, a lot of old calibers. And I think the best example of that in American history is the old sporterized Springfields, the 03 Springfields, the old bolt actions used in World War I and World War II. And the history behind those is, American freedom right there with what we were doing in World War I and World War II as a country. But, the thing, if you look back at even the Sporterized, you can buy those a lot of times for $300-400 on a private party website like that. You can buy a piece of history that somebody has modified, so it has no collector's value anymore, but it can hunt a deer and be an affordable way for you to do it and then own a piece of history. I love it.
I do too, buddy. I mean, you have ignited a spark that was smoldering back when I was 20 years old. But I would get these guns, and honestly, I wish I knew. I wish I had these things. So I probably had 3 different ones. One, if I'm not mistaken, I don't even know the caliber, was a Chinese. It had a bolt about. It looked like a ramrod. This thing had a bolt on it. It's a bolt action. And I never could find. I know that the bullet, the rounds for ammo was available somewhere, even back then. Maybe a hand loader or specialty company, but I never even shot the thing. Couldn't find any bullets for it back in the day. No, this is interesting stuff, and we could go on, and you know, maybe we will another segment. We'll come back and you know, talk more about it. But folks, to me, this is intriguing, and I bet a lot of our shooters out there are thinking, you know what, that would be cool to get a. I'm very anxious for you to take that rifle to the range, and I want you to keep me abreast of this. If that thing, honestly, at 100 yards, people talk about minute of angle or half minute of angle. If that gun would consistently shoot, now a lot of our serious rifle shooters are going to say, "Oh, Luke, he's just not accurate enough." If that thing would consistently shoot a 3-inch group at 100 yards, I've got a feeling it's going to do a lot better than that. But if it would, I mean, 3-inch group at 100 yards, that's if you're not shooting a whitetail at 300 yards, that's your gun. And then to hunt with something with that kind of history, it's just plenty cool. So if you will, keep me posted, and we'll I want to tell our listeners, a lot of people will be interested in that. Tell them how it progresses. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I you know, we'll put some social media posts out there. Everything I post is public.
Yeah.
And just talk about the history and everything else of this. Was a 1916 model. It wasn't made in 1916. It's probably sometime after that, but the crest has been drilled and tapped, so I can't really tell the year.
Yeah.
But a 7mm Mauser, okay, and we're talking, you know, that was used. And think about the history that I'm learning when I'm looking up the details of this military rifle. Go back to the Spanish-American War and the Rough Riders with Teddy Roosevelt back then. Okay, we don't talk about that all the time, but you know what? That gun was used in battle of that war.
Yeah.
And so we don't necessarily know if that particular rifle was, but it ended up here in America somehow.
And Dustin,
it's great. Yeah.
Now Dustin and his son Jackson are working with it. Well, quickly, we've got time in this segment. Tell folks how to contact you, folks. Dustin is I call him a guru. He doesn't like that too much, but he's a cutting edge guru. Anything to do with social media. Tell them how to contact you, buddy.
Sure. So I have two main websites. They have a link tree on each one of them that you can find, and my link tree is all over my social media. So businesswithdustin.com is my business kind of marketing agency side of what I do. And then my personal website, kind of my creative hub, is dustinsprojects.com. 2 S's, no hyphens or spaces or anything like that, or apostrophes. dustinsprojects.com. And you can connect with me on social media, whatever. My phone number I'll even give out here, 512-497-7674. And thank you so much for a great show and for having me on, Luke.
Folks, let's talk a little outdoor cooking. Let me tell you about an electric smoker that I've been using for 15 years, I guess. Smoking Tex electric smokers. If you're tired of staying up all night keeping that wood fire burning when you're barbecuing, give Smoking Tex a try. They're made to last a lifetime. You can check them out at smokingtex.com. That's SMOKINTEX.com. For seasonings, anything to do with outdoor cooking, all kind of jerky seasonings, sausage seasonings, Butcher Packer Supply. That's butcherpackersupply.com. I think the website is butcher-packer.com.
Big Sam left Seattle in the year of 92 with George Pratt, his partner, and brother Billy too. They crossed the
Friends, this segment is made possible by Platinum Cadillac and Chevrolet in Terrell, Texas. Stop by and visit with my buddy Mr. Justin Rudd and his team of experts and let them put you in a new Chevy pickup or a Cadillac or whatever you might be in the market for. Also, the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma. Check them out at ChoctawHuntingLodge.com. Also made possible by Pyramid Air, your one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Well, friends, let's go down to beautiful Lake Tawakoni. Now, guide Brett Kilmer with Chums on the Water is standing by. We're going to talk about winter fishing for scale fish. We're talking about sand bass, white bass, hybrid stripers, and we're going to talk about fishing, catching them dead sticking. Brett, thank you for being with us, buddy.
Oh, you're welcome.
You know, I'd like you to a lot of people are not aware of how deadly a technique in the wintertime, especially, mostly in the winter, that dead sticking is. So for those of us that people that are familiar with it, okay, but there's a lot of people that's going to learn something. Dead sticking is a wintertime pattern for fin fish like hybrids and stripers and whiteback. It's very effective, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it works really good in the wintertime. They doesn't put a lot of action on the bait and gets them bite it pretty good.
Well, talk to us about technique. Say you're gonna say you've never dead stick. What kind of baits are you going to use? And then talk about the transmission of sound down through the water by use of a thumper. Some people are going to say, "What's old Luke talking about? A thumper?" So tell us about how you do it.
So what you're doing is you're just getting out pretty much what I would call the middle of the lake. You're going to be in about 40 foot of water, sometimes deeper, and all the bait is congregated out in this deep water. And as soon as you go out in your boat, you can see the big balls of shad, and that's what these fish are following. And basically, you're just either drifting real slow or using your trolling motor to go into the wind. But I like to keep it under half a mile an hour, which would be 0.5 on your graph.
Mm-hmm.
But 0.3 is perfect, and you're just dropping these baits straight down and holding them still. And what I use is I like to use feather jigs, like some will use the big white ones for stripers or whatnot. Mm-hmm. A lot of people use a ball jig, which is fine, just a big jig head with like a plastic fluke on it or some sort of fish bait like that. Mm-hmm. That mimics a bait fish, and hold it straight down. As a general rule, 90% of my fish are about between 20 and 25 feet down over 40 plus foot of water. Okay. Another thing people say is 12 pulls, but mm-hmm. there's really no guesswork in the depth. It's you can go down 20 foot to 25 foot and they're coming up and hitting it, and hold your bait in that depth zone and pretty much catch them. And then what you'll do is we turn what's called a thumper on, and it makes a thumping sound on the bottom of the boat, and this pulls those big fish up out of that deep water, and they'll just follow your boat, eating the whole drift. And you don't necessarily have to have a thumper. Some people make their own; they're pretty expensive, but a lot of times you can use the bottom of your rod or the bottom of your net and hit the boat, and as long as you make a steady cadence with it, just a thump sound, it will do the same thing, and that's basically it. You just put the lure down there, and it's almost like crappie fishing for sand bass or for hybrids or stripers, and you wait for the thump, and it's pretty fun action.
It took me a long time to really convince myself. I used to fish back 30 years ago. And I had a good friend of mine that was a guide back then at Texoma, and he had a walking stick with a rubber tip on it. And when he wasn't doing it, he'd hand it to me. Said, just keep on thumping the bottom of the boat. And you could literally, that was back in the day with the X16 paper graph with a stylus on it. You'd see those fish start. He'd say, look at this. I became convinced of what that thumping does way back there, It works. But another friend, Jeff Bobo, that came out with a Bobo thumper, that's one mechanical thumper, a rubber mallet. That's all it is, friends. It's on a cog, and that mallet rolls around in thumps, and usually they're built into a little box, and that sound transmits down into the water. And I don't know if anybody really knows, Brett, why that triggers the strike. I think that the fish are just, if you can call a fish curious, I think they think it has something to do with its time to eat, And
it does. Yeah. It's like ringing the dinner bell. We say the only other theory I kind of have too is when you get over this bait, each thump might scatter, or everyone knows how schools of fish or shad swim in the water. They're in big tight balls. So if you hit a thump real hard, what I picture is that group will turn or move or
flash under there.
And it might make keep those bait fish from balling up, which makes them an easier target, makes them start feeding, and it's just a chain reaction. That's another theory that
it's fun thinking about why it's fun thinking about why things in the outdoors really work. It is. So that could be it. Just the bait fish move, flash around down there, and then turns them on. Well, the bite. Talk about the bite. How they, you've got your bait down there, and it's kind of a do nothing type of fishing.
It is a do nothing. You're just holding it still. Now I'll raise my rod up a foot or down a foot just to kind of cover through the water column a little bit. One thing I think is important is the size of the jig head you're using. You don't want to go too light because you want it to hang straight down, or especially if you have some wind or a little bit of current. Again, you're out in the middle of the lake. A 1 ounce jig head or a 1 ounce hair jig is going to work a lot better. It's going to stay under the boat and not come back up behind the boat. Now, if you can get away with it, you're going to have a lot of white bass following the boat as well. They're not going to hit the bigger lures like the hybrids would hit, but you can downsize to a 1/4 ounce jig head, basically a 1/4 ounce crappie jig head, and put on a regular like a Bobby Garland or any kind of tube jig and catch the sand bass in them. And I'll do that a lot, and you can use light line, and that's fun. But for the most part, you want a heavier 1 ounce jig head for the bigger stripers or the hybrids. You can, and I see a lot of people, because the common size is a 1/2 ounce, and a 1/2 ounce looks really heavy. But it's not quite heavy enough. As you start drifting, the line will come up a little bit. So 3/4 to an ounce for the bigger fish is going to serve people better. And I also which is common in crappie fishing, people use tandem jigs, one up the line, tie one up and one below. I do the same thing. When I'm dead sticking, I use 2 jigs, and I'll put a 1/2 ounce on the top and a 1 ounce on the bottom. If it's not real windy, I might do a 1/2 ounce on the top and a 3/4 ounce on the bottom.
Brett, when you tie that top jig, how do you attach that to the line? Just right to it, or is there kind of a loop or anything?
Now sometimes I do a loop knot. More so crappie fishing, I use the loop knot. I'm about 50-50 now. The loop knot allows that top bait to have a little more action, but with the wintertime and the hybrids, I've gotten to where I actually will just tie it directly to the line just for convenience and quickness, and it works just as good. You could just tie what's called a Palmar knot and leave a long tag hanging when you tie the knot, and then go ahead and tie your bottom jig,
your heavy jig,
and it'll work just fine.
I got you. That gives it, like you say, the jig is basically just. I used to get a kick out of people talking about years ago, and I thought about this. Hold the jig still. People say, don't let it move. We want it still. But you think about that thing. You got wave action. You got maybe a little wind. You got boat moving around. That jig down there, whether you're crappie fishing or whatever, it's probably not really still, is it? It's bound to be.
It's moving, yes. And a lot of times you'll think you're below the boat, and you'll hook up a fish, and he's under almost the other side of the boat to where you thought the bait's really moving down there. So you'll feel him on. You think he's straight down below you, but he'll be. I'm with you. That's happened a lot. Well, wintertime fishing, Brett, is, regardless of people are listening to us on a bunch of radio stations in Texas and as far away as Georgia and northern Arkansas and Oklahoma. But this Lake Tawakoni, folks, if you're not close by, or if you're listening to the podcast after all of our great radio stations run it, Tawakoni, where Brett is a 45 minutes east of Dallas, and it's an awesome lake for a lot of things: crappie,
really good crappie fish in there too. But sand bass, white bass, we call them sand bass down here in Texas. But hybrid stripers, there's stripers in there too. It's the catfish capital, in my opinion, of Texas. So a lot of good fishing right there, Brett, where you're at. Tell folks how to contact you. You work with Chums on the Water, and that can be found on social media, can it?
Yeah, you can just put Chums on the Water in Facebook.
Yep.
Or we have a website, which is chumsonthewater.com, and that'll give them all the information they need, and they can call me directly. The phone number's on the website or on Facebook, and certainly get in touch. And like you said, they can go any lake close to them in the wintertime.
Yep.
That have a population of white bass or hybrids or stripers, they're going to bunch up, and they can do this technique. And it's fun. Some of the funnest fishing, and it's some of the easiest fishing. And, they could go the lakes around us like Cedar Creek, Richland Chambers, and Texoma, Lake Cooper, all those lakes fish just like this.
That's right. Well, next time we'll talk about you love to cook and eat fish like I do. We might share some recipes next time, Brett. How about that?
I do. I have a few good recipes, from cooking them in the oven to making fish soup out of them. That really good.
You bet. Okay. Well, thanks for the information on the dead sticking, and hope to see you soon, buddy.
All right, Luke.
For about the past decade, I've been hunting editor for Airgun Hobbyist magazine. I think the only magazine devoted strictly to airgun shooting and hunting in the country. Well, in that length of time, I've learned quite a bit about big bore airguns and smaller calibers too. A spot to go to that if you're interested in airguns, you need to know about Pyramid Air. The website is PYRAMYD, pyramidair.com. They have anything and everything you need, from the guns themselves, the big bores or the smaller calibers, to the accessories. Just remember pyramidair.com, and there's a number when you get on the website if you need to call and talk to somebody. Give them a buzz, and they can fill you in on little details that you might need to know about shooting or hunting with big bore air guns.
The snowflakes fall as winter comes, and time just seems to fly.
Friends, this segment is brought to us by CVA muzzleloaders. In my opinion, the very best muzzleloaders in the world, the ones that I shoot. You can check them out online, cva.com. Kubi's Wild Game Processing and Kubi's Restaurant in Dallas, and Vineyard Max, maker of some awesome deer attractant and some very fine game feeders and fish feeders, located down in Nacogdoches, Texas. Check them out at vineyardmax.net. Folks, I want to introduce you to some good friends of mine at Dash for Cash Pawn Shop in Seagoville, Texas, located at 133 Hall Street. The phone number is 972-287-3121. Go by there and talk with Gary or Randy, the owner. They're great people. They've got some great prices. Again, that's the Dash for Cash Pawn Shop, Seagoville, Texas, 972-287-3121. Well, friends, our next guest is my good friend, Jeff Rice. Now, Jeff is the producer of our weekly TV show that Jeff and myself and Larry Weishuhn do. It's called A Sportsman's Life. Always like to get, Jeff, I like to get you on and pick your brain about filming and how I can get better video to you and stuff like that.
I'm always glad to join you and glad to talk video.
You darn right. You know, one thing that on a recent show of A Sportsman's Life that I'll compliment you, and maybe my part was pretty easy. All I had to do is punch a button and pull a trigger, but I use an ATN thermal scopes, and then I use the ATN digital, which is, it's called an X-Sight. But on that X-Sight, it's a digital scope, not thermal. And I know most of our friends know what I'm talking about. But it films in just like actually you were using a camera. And the doe that I shot with that air gun, that 51 caliber Tex-Rex, the doe that I shot, I actually just punched a button and the camera in the little digital scope started running, of course, and I caught the shot and all. and you put it. I sent it to you. Pull the little SD card out of the ATN scope and put it on my computer. There's other ways to do it, but that's the way I do it. And then emailed it to you. And then the next time I see it, it's on the big screen. But I was amazed. It's not the quality of the cameras that you use or the one that I use, but it was pretty darn clear right off that scope. So it's hard when you're hunting. It's hard for me, difficult for me to wrap my mind around filming when there's a buck or something or some meat out there I'm wanting to shoot, Jeff. So that solved that problem for me, at least in that situation, you know?
Yeah, well, I can tell you this, and anybody out there that films their deer hunts, that's a hard thing to do in and of itself, even with a separate camera on a tripod. It's a difficult thing. I mean, I shot a deer earlier this season, and I had the camera right there with me, and I didn't get the shot on film just because of the fact that the deer moved right at the second, and I had 1 second to shoot. But the thing about those, the scope that you're talking about, that you can pop that little SD card in, that gives you exactly what you're looking for. You're looking through the scope, you're able to make that shot, but you're also filming at the same time. And the quality, surprisingly, in those scopes, the video quality is quite good. And that's a great way to capture the film or the footage of your hunt by using a scope like that and getting getting it on film right on your scope. Pretty cool stuff for sure.
It is. And, of course, that's the ATN X-Sight, it's called, digital scope. But I also use the Thor. Of course, all makes of digital scopes, many of them have the recording ability. But not too long ago, I don't know if I even sent you this. Maybe I did. But I was using the thermal at night out there, the ATN. This is about, 3 weeks ago. And I'm talking about a big buck. He was a 150 class. I was hog hunting is what I was doing, of course, and I looked and I saw some movement, and I just hit the button and started recording. There was a big buck walked within probably, 45, 50 yards of me, and I filmed him. I don't know if I actually sent you that. If not, I need to. And that buck walked along there, and you could actually, with that ATN scope, you could count points. But a perfect video, and then he finally, he didn't spook. He just started running. I tracked him while he was running. He jumped the fence. So, yeah, I think a lot of people might miss out on the capabilities of these thermals, and especially the digital. The digital scopes on day mode is pretty much just like running a video camera, but something that people could think about, right?
Absolutely. And again, I mean, having the video camera in the scope, it's a game changer. You're not having to, like me, reach over and look at the camera and make sure it's on, and then look through the scope, and you're kind of trying to do both things, and that's a recipe for disaster.
It is.
Yeah, but having that video camera right there in the scope, man, that's a game changer.
It is. I'll tell you a quick story, and our friends listening too. Last night or yesterday evening, the afternoon hunt. I am fresh off of this deal. You're talking about a disaster could have happened, not with the deer, but with the camera. I'm out there, and I am telling you, I'm hunting close to home, and there's some big deer here. I've hunted this area for close to 20 years. Never killed a great big deer. I've got a good friend that's taken some big ones. I'm talking about 172. One of them scored. Anyway, I'm in a pop-up blind, Jeff, and I already told you this story, but I had the ATN X-Sight, the digital scope. Of course, you hunt deer in daylight. You can't be hunting them out there in the dark, but you can use a scope. You can hunt deer in the daylight with a thermal scope if you want to. A lot of people don't know that. You just have to adhere to the legal shooting hours. So I'm out there, and it's about, 20, 30 minutes before the legal shooting time ends. And Jeff, the biggest wild whitetail buck I've ever encountered while hunting come out about 45 yards in heavy cover, heavy brush. I'm on the ground, so I don't have the vantage point of looking down, and seeing him really well. I'm on the same level that he's on. And he comes out, hangs up behind a big old oak tree, and sticks his antlers around, his head around there, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to try to film this. I reach up and touch the button to film. I had not put the little tiny SD card in there, and it won't work without it. I figured that out. So, and it really probably wouldn't have been much of a video anyway, really, because I'm not sure if through all that brush if I could have really picked it up. But trust me, I have a new little tiny SD card that's going in that ATN scope. So if it all works out, who knows where that buck's going to be this evening? But I know where old Luke's going to be. I'm going to be back in that pop-up.
I don't blame you.
Yep. Well, Jeff, you have I want to introduce people to a sportsman's life. A lot of people that listen to our show, I get comments from time to time. It's a fun show. Tell all of our audience about what a sportsman's life is about and where they can find it,
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So A Sportsman's Life is our video series that we put out on YouTube and also Carbon TV, carbontv.com. YouTube, it's A Sportsman's Life. And really, just generally speaking, I think we coined the term real world outdoors, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, we're going to go out, we're going to hunt, we're going to fish, we're going to do cooking, we're going to do all sorts of outdoor activities, and we film it, and we film what happens, whether you shoot a deer, don't catch, or catch a fish, or whatever the case may be. But it's sharing time in the outdoors with friends and just good times we have, and we show it like it is, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, you never know what you're going to get. We have a lot of upcoming stuff that we're going to do. You and I will probably go out and do some muzzleloader hunting during the muzzleloader season.
Yeah, coming up.
I know Larry's out. Gosh, that guy spends more time in the blind than anybody I know. So you'll be able to see some upcoming hunts from Larry, Mr. Whitetail's hunting adventures, and of course, Luke always whips up some good camp grub, and so there's lots of recipes, those type things that you're going to see, and I mean it's just a lot of fun stuff, and it's all it's stuff that's current events, current things going on. It's not stuff from a year ago or 3 or 4 years ago. This is all real world new stuff coming each week to our viewing audience. So yeah, carbontv.com or A Sportsman's Life. Just look that up in the search engine on YouTube, and
you're there.
Enjoy.
It is. I've had a lot of people comment, Jeff, about this show. You do a great job putting it together, and it's fun to watch. But people tell me, I've had so many people tell me, when we're watching that, you might lose your fish, or that buck, he may not get clear for a shot or whatever. But we enjoy that. I'm not bashing some of the shows that were filmed and then aired a year or two later on some of the networks. I'm not bashing those at all. I know what they're doing and why they're doing it, but it's not real world outdoors. You don't always arrow that big bull elk the first time you put a cow call out, or it just, the outdoors does not work that way. And the way we portray it, or the way we show it, is pretty much something that anybody that hunts and fishes can relate to, So it's not all we don't. Well, we do. It's not that we always don't succeed in catching a big catfish or shooting a buck or a doe for the table, but the times that we do not do it, we show that too, don't we, Jeff?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you and I, when we first started we'll be starting our 6th season in 2026. So, it's been 5 solid years of this. And when you and I first started doing this stuff, that's kind of what we talked about. And we're like, we're going to make this real. This is how it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And as I just said, I mean, there's all the different facets of what we do in the outdoors, and we bring it to you as it is, and it's all current, and you can catch up with us every week, see what we're up to, and that's what we've done all along, Luke. That's what you and I talked about, and that's what we've done. It's been fun.
It's been fun. And folks, here's the thing: you probably can learn a thing or two. I do, from these other two very experienced outdoor people, Jeff and Larry. I've learned a lot from them. And don't think that old Luke has been twiddling his thumbs for the past 60 years in the woods. I think I've shared some things that helped others too. So that's what we're all about, Jeff. Hey, I want to do one thing. I want to wish you a happy new year and all of our friends a happy new year, and remind everybody that's driving and that might be out having a real big time on New Year's Eve, be real careful. And if you happen to partake of some spirits or whatever, hand those keys to somebody else. Right, Jeff?
Absolutely. Good point. Happy New Year to you, Luke.
Folks, that about wraps our show up for this week. I've enjoyed being with you, and I hope you've had a good time, too. And, folks, we're also brought to you by the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma, located about, 45 minutes west of Hugo, Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation. It's about 45,000 acres of awesome mountain, country, hills, valleys, loaded with game. Lots of eastern turkey, and they do eastern turkey hunts if you're looking for a spot to hunt turkey in the spring.